What do you think is at stake for Russell Wilson this season?
His legacy, and I think that's probably something that's very important to him. So you come out of the run he had in Seattle and all the success he had there, you probably think of this guy's headed for the Hall of Fame, and he may well be. But after last year and how bad it was his first season in Denver, you start to wonder, like, should we be jumping to that conclusion? If he does that again, if he's that bad again, then I think, you do have to start to wonder about his legacy and how we will view him long term. If he bounces back under Sean Payton and plays like the guy we knew from Seattle, then I think it's back on track. But I think it's a very significant year for him.
I see it the same way, and I can't decide in my own head if that's fair or not. Look, Russell Wilson, the teams that went to the back-to-back Super Bowls. No, it doesn't. But
yeah.
but let's live in a world where we care if it's fair or not. The back-to-back Super Bowl teams, those were led by the defense. And people, but the later years for Russell Wilson, he had some terrific years in Seattle, really good years in which they didn't do quite that level of winning. But last year, Harry, was so bad that it threatened, I think, to sort of undo so much of what he did. And I agree with Dan. I think Russell Wilson is a person very cognizant of the way people perceive him. Is that at stake for him? If this doesn't go well for him, do you think it changes the perception of everything he's ever accomplished?
I believe so, and it's because how bad he looked last season, a season ago under Nathaniel Hackett. When there were opportunities for Russell Wilson to hit wide open guys, he wasn't hitting it. And I think one of the things that stood out to me is when KJ Hamler had a wide open touchdown and Russell Wilson didn't throw him the football, him slamming the helmet down, that told me everything I needed to know about Russell Wilson as a leader in that locker room a season ago. When you see players challenging your quarterback coming off the field, things like that, other players looking at him certain ways, looking at him side-eyed, those things matter, right? When you talk about perception and your legacy and what you thought of by your peers and your teammates and who you call your brothers on your football team, all those type of things matter to me.
Absolutely. Ninko, I'm wondering, because he's got Sean Payton there now, and I should have mentioned that at the beginning of the conversation. That plays heavily into this. Sean Payton is a proven commodity. We know what he can do with a top-flight quarterback. He did all kinds of winning, and Drew Brees rewrote the record books. So how about the Sean Payton factor in all this? How do you expect him to handle Russell Wilson?
It's a huge factor. And I'll give you a quick illustration of Russell Wilson from Seattle to Denver. It was like this. And then it went. That's what happened, okay? Now, you need Sean Payton. You need Sean Payton to bring the up, bring it back up, bring it here. And how can he do that? Well, guess what? He had Drew Brees. What was Drew Brees? An undersized guy that wasn't very big but had great pocket presence, awareness, and understood how to get the ball out of his hands quickly, how to use the weapons around you to beat the defense according to what they show you. And Sean Payton is probably one of the best, smartest, offensive-minded coaches in the NFL that understands exactly how to utilize the athletic ability of Russell Wilson, get the ball out of your hand quickly, get it to the weapons, let them do all the running and all the catching and all the avoiding of tackles. Russell Wilson, get the ball out of your hands quick. Understand the defense. Understand what we're doing. Come to the sidelines. Let's look at the plays together. Tell me what you like. I'll tell you what I don't like. Let's run it. That's what Sean Payton is. That's what Sean Payton has to do. And that's what Russell Wilson needs to go from to good.
Okay. So if only because I would like to hear you make that sound effect one more time, I will ask you this question. If it doesn't go well, normally you would never even consider this with a player of his stature, with his contract. But if it does not go well, what kind of leash do we think we're looking at here? I mean, Jarrett Stidham is the backup quarterback in Denver for what that's worth. Is this a situation where he's playing for his job?
Yeah. Is it on me?
Yes,
Harry?
of course I'm talking to you.
Harry, or
who else made
going?
that sound effect?
Ninko or Harry?
No, Ninko, you made the sound effect. I want to hear you make it again. Yeah. If it goes that way, then what happens?
4 weeks. Give him a month. Give him a month because the first 4 weeks of the season, are pretty much like, here, let's play some soft toss, okay? So if he doesn't go out there and execute at a high level, and they look similar to last year where he's holding the football, missed throws, getting sacked, coming off on the sidelines saying, let's go, and everyone's like, okay. It's 4 weeks, and Sean Payton isn't the guy that's going to be like, okay, we'll figure it out. He's a guy that's like, no, listen, this is how we're going to do it. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to run it. You're going to run it my way. It's my way, or get going. And Sean Payton's going to be there a long time. Sean Payton just signed a big contract. He's not going
4
anywhere.
weeks.
And they just were bought by a company that has more money than anybody. So
That's right.
listen, if Russell Wilson doesn't get it done in the first month, he'll have to figure it out, but he won't be the starting quarterback
Well, Greeny,
for the Broncos.
me, I think the most important thing for Russell Wilson is being able to be on the same page with Sean Payton and understand what he wants from his quarterback. Because if you can't do that, I don't think you stand a chance. Because he has a model, he has a way that he wants to do things. Playing against him so much to a T and watching Drew Brees and watching the magic between those two guys, you need to get in and out of the huddle. You need to understand what the defense is doing. You need to get the football out of your hand. You can't hold it so now the offensive line is looking bad because you're taking sacks. Russell Wilson has to be on the same page as Sean Payton, or it's going to be Jarrett Stidham in there playing football.
Yeah, it's remarkable to think it, but it does certainly feel like a possibility. Okay, the Eagles feel like they are the best team, and they're the defending champions in the conference, so they deserve that. Are the 49ers, in your mind, their biggest threat?
Oh, that's a really tough one. But yeah, I do believe that they would be one of the biggest threats, if not the biggest threat, depending on the health at the quarterback position. And that we see that every single year. A team that's really good with a great defense have one little hiccup and they lose somebody that's a key piece, and that really affects them. So I think if Brock Purdy can stay healthy, and listen, an elbow surgery is such a fickle part, especially at the quarterback position. It only takes one little tweak to where he's like, man, I'm sore this week. I can't do what I want to do out here. So hopefully, and that's for the 49ers' sake, he stays perfectly fine and goes through this training camp process where I guarantee he's on a pitch count. They're going to make sure he doesn't throw the ball too many times and gets to the season and is ready to go, because you still have another month and a half before they play a meaningful game. So, yes, with a healthy 49ers roster and a Brock Purdy that can be at the helm healthy for 17 weeks, I do believe that they would be the team that would give the Eagles a run for their money.
And look, we know they brought in Sam Darnold, and we've been hearing good reports about it. And I've said multiple times, if anyone can get Sam Darnold to where he once looked destined to go, Kyle Shanahan may be that guy. And that leaves Trey Lance. Yeah. And I will remind people, the 49ers gave up everything in the world to move up and draft him, and now he has fallen behind Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. What, if anything, and I know it's not the topic here, but no. What happens to him?
I think if he performs well in the preseason and Purdy is healthy, then I think you're going to start to hear rumblings about a potential Trey Lance trade. Maybe he's appealing to somebody else. Now, that doesn't mean it'll happen. Ninko talks about a hiccup that can affect the season. The 49ers, when it comes to quarterback injuries and injuries in general, have had chronic hiccups. Like, they have a major problem. The reason Brock Purdy got the job is because Trey Lance got hurt and then Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. So it may be to their benefit to keep all three guys, because no one knows better how difficult it is to replace quarterbacks when they get hurt. But it's possible, if someone were to offer something that reflects, the fact that Trey Lance was the number 3 pick in the draft 2 years ago, they could move him.
But those are also the effects of when you draft well, when you can hit on guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant. You have the luxury of trading up for a guy and him not panning out the way you want to, but your team still being at the top of the upper echelon in the NFL.
And that's why I framed it the way I did at the beginning. If any of their quarterbacks are healthy at the end, are they the biggest threat?
Yeah, because that's what happened, right? They got to the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, and then suddenly none of the quarterbacks were healthy, and they couldn't win the game.
They couldn't play football in that game. If they have anyone who can do it, I think they are the biggest threat. But in a world where they do have Zach Martin this year, Harry, is Jerry right? Is this a Super Bowl team?
Yes, this is a contender year in and year out, Greeny, and that's the thing. Every year we talk about the Dallas Cowboys as being a Super Bowl contender and contending in that manner, but every year they come up short. There's something that doesn't allow them to advance to an NFC Championship game, in which since January 14th, 1996, they haven't been to one. They haven't been to one. They haven't been to one, Greeny.
No. Okay, that's correct.
They haven't been to one.
They have not been to one.
And when you look at players on their roster, whether it's Trayvon Diggs, Michael Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, none of those guys was even born during that time. They wasn't even born during that time frame in which Dallas Cowboys made an NFC championship game.
True.
But the offensive side of the ball, can Dak Prescott be consistent in the big game? Right? Can Mike McCarthy put them in the best situations possible so his quarterback can, thrive in those situations as well? It hasn't been a defense since Dan Quinn has got there. That defense has been elite, and they have played lights out. It's nothing like having a defense that can sack the quarterback and you have a playmaker and can create turnovers and get you extra possessions. Now it's on the Dallas Cowboys from an offensive standpoint to take advantage of those turnovers that defense creates and also feed off their energy because they have been the weakest link. Goodbye. Ever since they made the playoffs the last 2 years.
Ninko.
And I've talked about this before, having a coach that can emphasize ignoring the outside noise and the hype. And Harry talked about every single year they are in contention. They are possibly in contention because of the talent, but they haven't won a playoff game, and they're not able to get over the hump. So that is when you have to have the leadership and you have to have the head coach that emphasizes ignoring the noise. And we're all human. Listen, we're all human. Football players are human too. When you have all this noise coming in, the media saying you're so good, the expectations, similar to the Jets we talked about last week. When those are so high, you have to be able to just completely throw that out of the back of your head. Just ignore it and play ball. You got to go out there and execute at a high level. Now, can they do it? Can Mike McCarthy manage the team, call the plays? Can Dak play at a high level? Is Zach going to be on the team? What's their offense going to look like? Their identity? They're going to be a run-first team. They're going to be a passing team. So this all has to shape up in training camp, and we'll find out soon. But that's what you have to do, ignore the noise.
So the point is that Saquon Barkley, contrary to what maybe we thought initially, he really didn't get almost anything from the Giants here, better than what he already had as a franchise player. And you know who noticed that was Joe Banner, a longtime front office executive. He posted this on Twitter yesterday. He posted, if Barkley wanted to help running backs pay or avoid getting tagged again, he made a huge mistake. This will encourage teams to continue to play hardball with running backs. Graziano, is that fair?
Yes, I think Joe is absolutely correct. I think even if he had just waited a few weeks, right? Like he wasn't getting fined because until you sign the franchise tag, you're not on the roster technically. Even if he had just waited a few weeks, maybe the Giants improve the offer of the incentive package or you can negotiate a higher salary on the franchise tag than the one that's prescribed by the CBA. So he didn't really get anything. If I were organizing the next running back Zoom call where they all complain about their situation, I think I would forget to include Saquon Barkley on it. He didn't do much to help.
I guess I can only imagine in his defense that he figured this is the best I can do.
Yeah.
And the reality is it probably was. Harry, we made the point when we were talking about this at the end of last week. He had no leverage at all, and that's what showed up in what he ultimately was forced to take.
Well, also, you got to look at it like this, and I said on this show last week, Grinny, for Saquon to make the decision that he can live with.
Right.
And he made that decision, right? So I can't question it. That's number one. But number two, if he was to sit out, right, and try to push for something that probably couldn't happen to 2030 when the CBA is up, how is that benefiting Saquon Barkley?
Nope.
How is that benefiting Josh Jacobs? So these guys are really backed into a corner to really be their own individuals and go about their business whichever way and direction they want to do it.
So you got Josh Jacobs holding out now in Vegas, and we don't know where that's going to go. Ninko, I guess I would ask, what's a running back to do? What should a running back in that situation, what can he do?
There's not much you can do. And it's pretty simple. It's supply and demand, right? It's how many guys out there can we plug into this system and can give us just enough that we need to where we can run our offense? And unfortunately, the way that the game has evolved, there have been teams that have won Super Bowls that didn't have to pay top dollar, that use a platooning type situation with guys coming on and coming off and, three guys in the backfield. And, I mean, you look at some of the contracts, even Zeke, right? And then you had Tony Pollard, who ended up being the better running back. And at the end of the day, these owners, they're very smart. They're billionaires for a reason. They understand the market, so to speak. So when you're a running back, it's got to be really, really tough to understand that you are a very vital piece to the organization, but they see you as an expendable piece, which is unfortunate. And I don't have the answer to that if you're a running back. I don't know, if you're in high school, switch positions, right? Go be a corner. Go be a safety. Go be a receiver because you're going to make more money.
What they can do. The answer to the question is, what's a running back to do? Win the Super Bowl, right? Like, we haven't seen teams win the Super Bowl with highly paid running backs occupying a significant chunk of their salary cap. If the 49ers win the Super Bowl this year with Christian McCaffrey in the middle of it all, that helps the case for the other running backs to want to be paid like vital parts of the team.
Maybe. I mean, he's been the MVP in places. Derrick Henry's been the MVP in places. Saquon Barkley was clearly the MVP
They haven't won
last year, but they didn't wind up winning it all. That's fair. Okay. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.